Hello, everyone. This is Shamir and Shabbat Shalom. Today we're going to have a short-ish discussion on the examination of cultic and legal terminology in Parashat Re'eh. We're going to look at chapter 12, verses 1 and 6 in the book of Devarim or Deuteronomy. Okay, so Deuteronomy 12:1. We have two words that we're going to focus on, hachukim vehamishpatim. So, ele hachukim vehamishpatim asher tishmerun, that you are to keep, la'asot, to do, ba'aretz asher natan Yahweh, in the land that Yahweh, your God, the God of your fathers, avotecha, gave to you, lecha, lirishta, to possess it. Kol hayamim, so all the days, asher atem, that you are, asher atem chayim, that you are living al ha'adamah, so upon the land. We do have two different words for land, adamah and eretz. Just pointing these out, but I'm not going to go into a whole song and dance. Tishmerun, remember, Yahweh says that Moshe was his friend, and then Yeshua tells us that if you are my friend, you will keep my commandments. So Shamar, Tishmerun, that you are to keep. And then he also says to keep and to do them. So he really specifically says this phrase, Tishmerun la'asot, to keep, to do. Okay? So hachukim, from the word huk, statutes, the hamishpatim, from the word mishpat. These are plural forms, judgments. So the specific legislation that follows in Deuteronomy 12 through 25 is called the statutes and judgments. Further, this phrase does echo back to the beginning of Deuteronomy, where we hear Eli Hadevarim. So these are the words Asher Diber Moshe, that Moshe spoke Al Kol Yisrael, to all of Israel, because these words that he spoke are in the form of these two words that will span out into other legal terminology too. So Hachukim v'Mishpatim, Ele Hachukim v'Mishpatim, and Ele Hadavarim. So these are those words. Okay, so now we're going to look at law terminology. The two forms that we've already seen, Hok and Mishpat, are the ones that are being presented so far, are part of a series of law terminology used throughout the book of Deuteronomy. G. Bralik has examined 10 separate terms. He's a biblical scholar. All of these quotes are from Word Biblical Commentary. It's one of many scholarly commentaries. If you use a scholarly commentary, you want to use at least three, because they all touch on different topics. But for this, obviously, we're just going to use the one. Okay, so Brit, most of you might already know this word, covenant, the davar and or devarim, words, derech, ways. And when we talk about derech, it's in the sense of God's commandments, walking in those commandments. Something else I want to say. Oh yeah, so it's not a coincidence either that the first chapter of John opens up with this idea of words. Talk about davar, the word. The first chapter of John is really like a synopsis of the Torah, really. It's just that most people don't recognize the terminology used, so the book is usually not connected to the Torah, but it absolutely is um, introducing you to the restoration of Israel. All right, so now more law terminology, hukim, statutes from hok, hukot from Huka, laws, and mitzvah or mitzvot. Mitzvot is the plural of mitzvah, so commandments. Mishmeret. Mishmeret can mean, depends on context. So, and then you see the word shemem resh, shamar, to keep or guard. In this case, regulations. Mishpatim, again, judgments. Edut, testimonies. Remember the two tablets are referred to as the tablets of Edut. So this is more of like some the two witnesses that will witness against you if you do not keep these words. And then Torah, with the sense of instructions, this word gets raked over the coals in the apostolic writings or New Testament. This is also another thing because in the New Testament, you only have the one nomos, which is law, but then you see you have all these different terminologies, 10, that are used in the Tanakh, and there's a few additional ones that will be used as well. And so you have that one word to explain these 10 words. So when you read the apostolic writings, you have to know like what is actually being spoken about. People have become accustomed. It's not a good word to use. Very misunderstood, and people have become accustomed to saying the law, but they really don't know what they're talking about. So it's better not to say that or do a little research or something. Anyway, so most of these terms appear in the Great Meditation on the Torah in Psalm 119, which introduces two additional terms to the list, pikudim, precepts, and imrat, promises. And you have to think, here the psalmist made great effort to present us with this psalm and the importance of the Torah as a whole, and meaning including the Torah and all of these terminologies. So we should be very careful before we throw the Torah under the bus or even suggest that it has been canceled and all of these other things. It's not possible, and even with Israel, like I said, it's not spiritual Israel, it's an actual physical place where people live, including myself. It's not some spiritual, just a place that's in the mind of people. Anyway, all right, so let's go forward now. There was something else I wanted to add, but see, most of the terms appear. Okay, so let's look at this. Psalm 119 verses 1 through 8 constitute Aleph. Every word in this, remember, it's acrostic, an acrostic psalm, like Psalm 111 also is an acrostic. It's either 111 or 110. So goes through the entire Hebrew alphabet. And so each word begins with an Aleph, and the beginning of each verse. Verse 4, verse 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'll begin with Aleph, and then this encompasses about 7 of the legal terminologies that we looked at. Temi made there, so Acholechim, so walking in a blameless way. The Torah Yahweh, so in the instructions of Yahweh, this is the word Torah. It's just inflected, hasn't, anyway, we won't get into too much of the grammar. Edotav from Edut. This is one of the new ones. Pikudecha, so your precepts. Hukecha from Hok, again, your ordinances. Mitzvotecha, so your commandments. Mishpate, Sedek, or Sidkecha, so your righteous judgments. So we see we have 7 of these forms. that we just looked at here with the addition of, the only one that we did not see was Imrak in that verse. But if you go to 119:38, the word appears there. Okay. Now we have in verse Deuteronomy 12:6, we have offering terminology. So these are the offerings that you are to bring, the Hevetem Shama. So you are to bring there, meaning when you enter into the land, this is what is expected of you to do. So Olotechem v'zivchechem. So your whole burnt offerings. So we're going to get into the definitions of these later. Ma'asorei techem. So this is the 10th of the offering. Terumat yedchem. V'nidrechem. V'nidvotechem. V'chorechem. So that's the firstborn of the herds and flocks. V'karchem v'tzonechem. And then these are the lexical forms. Olah, zevach, masar, teruma, neder, nadeva, bechor. Nadeva is a voluntary offering. So it's interesting that Yeshua lets us know that no one is taking his life, but he's freely giving it up as one of these voluntary offerings. That no one is forcing him to do it, that he's freely doing it. Anyway, I haven't really looked into that. It's just an idea that comes to mind when I think about the Nadeva and Yeshua's words. All right, so here we're going to look at Zevach and Olah. So the Hebrew Olah means that which goes up in smoke. Now there's a verbal form, Allah means to go up, like to go up to Jerusalem. So you see they share the same root, the two words. And sometimes you'll see them together on Ola Allah. So the Ola is going up. So that which goes up, the flesh of the burnt offering goes up in smoke with nothing remaining as food for the priest or the worshipers. This is like the opposite of like pagan food sacrifices, because these sacrifices are made so that these pagan gods, demons really can eat. It's what Moshe says, if you are worshiping these pagan gods, you're just worshiping a shedim, or a demon. And then the other sacrifice, zevach, refers to offerings in which the meat is consumed by those who brought it. So olah, a burnt offering that goes up in smoke, it's burned completely, and then the only thing that's left is the smoke. And then a zevach is the offering, a meat offering that is consumed by those who brought it. Okay, masar, tithes, Eser is 10. Masar is a tenth of this tie. You can see again, they share the same root. So this refers to a payment of a tenth of the farmer's agricultural produce and livestock, namely the first fruits presented in the festival of weeks, Shavuot. Then we have Terumat Yedchem, so the contribution of your hands. Is sometimes rendered a heave offering or terumah, or what is set apart in the sense of being designated as a special offering. It represented something heaved or raised up from the perquisite of the priests. Nedava, which we looked at already, and neder. So the votive offering, neder, were gifts to God. Oops. That had been promised in the vows made on specific occasions, such as childbirth or in the time of battle. And we see that, of course, in the book of Judges, Yiftach or Japheth. In Hebrew, it's Yiftach. And he says the first thing that comes out of his house, he vowed that to the Lord to win in battle. And then, of course, that all went wrong, which is why you've got to be careful what you vow. And the free will offerings, nadeva, were gifts presented from a spontaneous impulse without prior obligation or commitment. Okay, and bechor, the firstborn, the firstlings of your herd and your sheep are the firstborn bechor males of the livestock, including oxen, sheep, and goats. And that is all we have. I'm sure it's enough. You might have to watch this a couple of times. You can go your way rejoicing into Shabbat. Tamid Kadima, my dad always says at church, always forward. And that is it. Till next time, Hitraot.